Hello everyone. So let us start with animal behavior in this video. So in the previous videos, I know the evolutionary theories can be a bit boring, but the animal behavior part is my favorite and the most interesting part of this kind of topic of this week. So therefore, let us start with animal behavior today, and I hope that you also find it interesting. So what is exactly behavior? Okay, so before moving into that, let us first discuss about this biological clock, which is the rhythm of our bodily functions. Like whatever we do it according to a day and night cycle. So this cycle is known as biological clock because our body knows that what we have to do in the daytime and what we have to do in the night time. So this distinguishing of the two different time zones and therefore working according to the different times of the day, this is known as a biological clock. Like we have a sleep cycle, we have a feeding cycle, we feel hungry at particular times. So this is our biological clock responding to whatever habits we have. So this clock can be internal or endogenous. That is, there is an internal biological clock, that is the body temperature cycle. So sometimes throughout the day, our body temperature can increase and sometimes it can decrease. So this is very common in nature, and this happens internally and we do not even know about it because we can't feel it. And when we are talking about external biological clock, then there are certain external stimuli, which can cause our internal cycle to synchronize with it, like the day and night thing. So sunlight. So sunlight, when we know that when the sunlight is fading away, it is evening and we are moving into the night. So this stimuli is known as a Zeitgeber. So this is a German term known as time giver. So these stimuli which help in the synchronizing of our internal biological clock, that stimuli is known as a Zeitgeber. So these stimuli such as sunlight, then food, then noise, then social interaction, these Zeitgebers help us to reset our biological clock and fix our circadian rhythm. Now, what is circadian rhythm? So, the period of this biological clock, which is close to 24 hours, like ours, which is known as circadian rhythm. So, our system is such that we have a circadian rhythm. We have a day-night cycle going on. So this circadian rhythm, which is almost close to 24 hours. So our biological clock is for 24 hours. Therefore, we call it a circadian rhythm. And diurnal rhythms are the circadian rhythm that is synchronized according to the day-night cycle. So whenever there is day, the body will perform these functions, and whenever there is night, the body will perform these functions. So they are segregated. Diurnal rhythms and circadian rhythms are almost similar in nature to each other because one is 24 hours, the other is day-night cycle. So in our cases, we almost have equal days and equal nights, but in the areas which are closer to the polar regions, they have longer days or longer nights. Then it becomes difficult for them to adjust their clock to that. So then diurnal rhythm is non-functional and circadian rhythm comes into action because even if there is night, there is sunlight. So therefore, they cannot synchronize their body according to the sunlight, and they have to change it according to the time zone. So they depend on the circadian rhythm and they choose that out of 24 hours, which hours they will just sleep and which hours they will perform work. Next, coming to ultradian rhythms. Ultradian rhythms are rhythms with a period much shorter than 24 hours, and they have very high frequency, just like our feeding cycle. So we have to like take meals at least 4 times a day in order to not feel hungry. So for that, the feeding cycle is in the 24 hours we have 4 feeding times. That means that the feeding cycle is much shorter and it is very much frequent. So therefore the ultradian rhythms are those rhythms which are lesser in duration than circadian rhythm, and this opposite is infradian rhythm, where the biological rhythm is more than 24 hours, like our menstrual cycle. This cycle continues for 28 days, and every 28 days the menstrual cycle happens. So therefore this is a much more longer time than circadian rhythm, than 24 hours. Therefore, these are called infradian rhythms. So these are the different cycles, internal as well as external cycles, which are governed by internal stimuli as well as external stimuli, and that is how our bodies are synced according to these times. Now, circadian rhythm, circa means a day, about circle, and day, the dian comes from day. So it's about a day. And therefore, these circadian rhythms include physiological and behavioral rhythms as well, like sleep wakeful cycle and body temperature, patterns of hormone secretion, blood pressure, digestive secretions, and these are all happening cyclically, going on inside our body, and we do not even know about it. So this is circadian rhythm, and this circadian clock, that is the organ which is responsible for it, is in the hypothalamus, the suprachiasmatic nuclei. This actually governs the circadian clock, and it is a cluster of about 10,000 nerve cells, and it actually helps in syncing the external cues, external stimuli or zit-jibbers with our internal body functions. So disruption of this SCN can cause jet lag, occurs during jet lag, shift work when we are working night shifts, or during old age also. Some people face these issues that they cannot sleep properly and all that. So this suprachiasmatic nuclei gets affected when we shift from different time zones, one time zone to other, and therefore we have to again synchronize it in the new place, in the new time zone, in order to get a proper absolute body functions. So circadian clock controls longer time circles like seasonal rhythms in reproduction, metabolism and appetite. So also this melatonin hormone, it induces sleep. So melatonin hormone is very important because this hormone ensures that we are getting a proper sleep, and this SCN, suprachiasmatic nuclei, ensures that melatonin is secreted only at night, so that our sleep is very much proper during the night, and in the daytime we do not feel sleepy. So melatonin secretion lasts longer on the longer winter nights. Therefore, in the winter season, it's very comfortable to sleep more. So because the melatonin secretion is quite high, and this melatonin secretion is governed by seasonality. So this is all for the circadian rhythm. Like here also you can see, like starting from the midnight, there is a deepest sleep zone in 2 o'clock, and then there is a lowest body temperature at 4 o'clock, and the sharpest blood pressure rise. So these temperature and blood pressure increase and decrease happens along the circadian rhythm, but we do not understand. Melatonin secretion stops in the morning, and then high alertness is there in the morning. Again, the fastest reaction time, best coordination and all that throughout the day when we actually work. And then comes the night time when melatonin secretion starts again. So these are some examples of ultradian, infradian and rhythms like menstrual cycle I've already talked about, and seasonal affective disorder. That is a depressive disorder that varies with the season. So it's a mental illness. So this happens with the season. So it's like a cycle, and therefore it is infradian because the duration is quite longer. Ultradian, like there is 5 distinct stages of sleep that occurs 90 minutes and cycles throughout the course of the night. So this is an ultradian rhythm when a sleep cycle is coming out, and there is 5 different stages during one sleep duration. So this is an ultradian rhythm. Next, we have a very interesting thing, which is the honeybee dance. So honeybee dance is a quite popular thing because they use different dance patterns and different dance techniques to communicate with each other. Bees are a social insect. They have a hierarchy, like they have a queen, they have workers, they have these class division is in the bees help them to perform better, to work together as a unit. Now, in this case, the honeybee dance is very popular because they have these different kinds of dances to communicate information about food source to the other members of the hive. So, they have 2 different dances. One is the round dance. So this round dance is like the bee will go like this and then again come like this, again it will go like this and again come back like this. So this round dance refers to whenever the food source is very near to the hive. So food source is less than 50 meters from the hive, and this news here, this new source of food has to be distributed to the other members of the hive as well. So in a small circle, it switches direction and moves around in a small circle, therefore like this. So this is called the round dance. So this dance, when it ends, then the others also get this information that there is a food source nearby, and therefore it has to just go. All of them has to go and collect food from there. But this dance does not clearly indicate the direction of the food source. So there is other kind of dance, which is the woggle dance, or this kind of an 8-like formation. So it goes in the middle like this, and then again it comes down like this, then it goes down like this, and it again goes down like this. So this woggle dance is a kind of dance which gives information regarding the direction of the food source. So if it is the angle is denoted by means of the sun's position in the sky at that particular time. So, like I was saying, that this direction of the food source, when it is straight in a straight line with relation to the sun, then it moves either upwards, or when it is towards the sun, it moves upwards, and when it is in a direction away from the sun, then it woggles down the comb. So this direction of the woggle represents what is the direction of the food source. Like if the sun is vertically upwards, then the woggle and the food source is like this, in this direction, and it will woggle in this direction only, creating an angle of 115 degree. Whatever the food source, if the sun is in 115 degrees with the food source, then it will woggle in this direction only, creating an angle of 115 with the sun. So this is known as woggle dance, like this. If the sun is up and the food source is here, it will woggle in this direction. If the sun is here and the food source is here, it will woggle downwards. So if the sun is here and the food source is here, it will woggle this way. So this is the kind of direction information given in woggle dance, and it denotes that the food source is quite far away and it is in this direction relative to the sun, like this. So there will be woggling here, and then it will go down, then it will woggling here, and it will again come back over here. So this is the kind of dance pattern which they show. So in between these two kinds of dances is another dance, which is sickle dance. So this sickle dance is something intermediate between round dance and woggle dance, and they do it to make sure that the food source is not very near or very far, but is an intermediate distance, and therefore it is a transition dance from the round dance to the woggle dance. So it indicates that there is the food source is somewhere in between, not very far, not very near. And this woggle in the woggle dance is because of the abdomen wagging and wing fluttering. They in high frequency they woggle their abdomen, and therefore the wings also flutter, and this causes the woggling thing. And when the food source is more than 50 meters away, they have to perform this kind of dance. So this forms like an 8 kind of a thing. It woggle in between and coming down from this side. So this is kind of an 8 formation. And this woggle is the distance. Also, the woggle through the circle conveys the distance information to recruit bees, like how much they are if the woggle is more like this, then it will be more distance, and if the woggle is in a less thing, then it is not very far, like not very more than 50 meters. So therefore this information, all this information regarding food source is conveyed by means of dance in honeybees. Next, we have to understand that what is exactly animal behavior. So behavior means whatever the acts or reactions an animal gives according to different kinds of actions, in response to different kinds of actions. This is known as animal behavior. So behavior can be 2 types, innate and learned behavior. Innate behavior means the automatic responses, like which was there from the very beginning of the animal's birth, and it is also known as reflexes or instincts. But learned behavior means as a result of experience, it has gained knowledge, and therefore the behavior comes from a lot of experience, and that is known as learned behavior. So anything an organism does in response to a stimulus in its environment can be called as behavior, and behavior is developed through interactions between genes and environmental inputs. So this behavior helps the animal to adapt to its surroundings. So in these 2 kinds of behavior, innate and learned, innate behavior are mostly reflexes, which are automatic responses, and they do not require any thinking at all. But innate behavior also has instincts like aggression. So when you have competitors or predators, there will be aggression, or to protect the young ones, there will be aggression. Submission shown by the weaker animal. The weaker animal will submit to the powerful animal so that there is no more conflict between them. Courtship, finding a mate, like finding a partner so that it can reproduce its own kind, that is a general instinct in all animals. Territoriality, like animals have their territories and they will defend their space no matter what. Also the cycles like circadian rhythm I talked about, the daily patterns, these are instincts, these are innate behavior. This comes to them naturally, they do not have to learn anything. Their sleeping cycle, feeding patterns, these are all instinct or innate behavior. Migration, like when they have to migrate from one region to another, we know that these butterflies migrate during summer and spring, and the salmon migrates from salmon migrates from one region to another. So this migration, this also is an innate behavior. Next is the hibernation and estivation. Hibernation is the sleeping during winter, and estivation is the sleeping during summer. So nobody has to tell them that, they do not have to learn that, it comes to them naturally. So therefore, like I was saying, so these are all innate behaviors and they come to the animal naturally. There is nothing learned or acquired in them. Next, what we know is that learning behavior. So learning behavior is whatever the behavior animal has acquired or learned over time, and this comes from previous experiences, whatever it has seen it happening in the previous time, and therefore it learns something, and as a result of experience it develops a behavior. So this learning behavior can be of different types like habituation, conditioning, complex learning. Conditioning can be of two types, classical and instrumental. Complex learning can be latent insight and imprinting. So let us go into that in details now. Habituation. So habituation means whenever there is an animal learns that stimuli is not so important to react. So that means it is habituating itself with that kind of a stimuli. So in this type of learning, animal learns to ignore repeated unimportant stimuli. Suppose a squirrels in a park, when they first see people coming into the park, they will be scared. They don't know what to do. But after getting accustomed to it, when they see that the people come every day and go, this is normal, so they will start not reacting to that. They will not be scared anymore. They will be feeling free to the people. So habituation is the reduction in response to a repeated stimulus. If you give a stimulus repeatedly, and it will stop reacting because it will now understand it is not important to react, so it will save its energy. The reaction is not associated with any reward or punishment. It is a non-important action, so therefore it will just stop reacting to it. So initial response is associated with danger, like whenever you see people first, the squirrels will be scared because it will feel danger. It will start fleeing from it, or it will become immobile or do some other kinds of response. But when it will see that it has no significant meaning, if the people are coming every day, they are not bothered by me and all that, then it will be habituated and the animal can sense it, but it will not respond to it anymore. So this property of the central nervous system is the habituation, and the benefit of habituation is that the response is reduced and therefore it saves time and energy of the animals. Another very important example is the Tinbergen's hog-goose model experiment, in which this silhouette was drawn in the form of a hawk. Like if you see in this direction, it's a hawk. If you see in this direction, it's a goose. So the cheeks, the young cheeks, this experiment was performed on young cheeks, and this shadow was shown to them, and whenever the hawk shadow was shown, they were frightened and they were alert. But whenever the goose direction, it was shown in the goose direction, then the cheeks were okay with it. It's very common in nature, and they were not frightened anymore. So this experiment also proved that it is about habituation. They are habituated with goose, their goose shadow, but they are not habituated with the hawk shadow, so they are frightened with it. So therefore, when you habituate it, it will also not feel frightened by the hawk shadow as well. So this is something called habituation. So this was performed by Tinbergen's classic example of habituation. Next we have the conditioning or classical conditioning. So whatever we all know about this Pavlov's dog experiment, that when food was given to it separately and the bell was ringing, there is no response. But when food is given, it salivates. So during conditioning, the bell was bell was ringing and also the food was given. So it's a conditioned response that it will now have the food along with the bell ringing. So it can connect the bell ringing of the bell with coming of the food. So therefore it becomes excited. Now whenever the bell is ringing, it is salivating because it is expecting food to come. So this kind of conditioning, you are conditioning an animal to react in a particular way. So this is also learned behavior because it is acquiring this behavior. You are conditioning the giving of the food with the ringing of the bell. So whenever the bell rings, it will assume that the food is incoming and therefore it will start salivating, expecting the food to come soon. So this is known as classical conditioning, learning through the association of a neutral stimulus with a biologically potent stimulus. So the biologically potent stimulus is the food and the neutral stimulus is the bell ringing. It has nothing to do with bell ringing, but since it has associated this with food, it will react to the ringing of the bell also. So instrumental conditioning or operant conditioning, in this conditioning there is some kind of consequences associated with a particular voluntary behavior. So if a baby smiles and the father picks up the baby, so therefore the baby keeps smiling because it is deliberately trying to attract the attention of the parent, and it tries to make the parent feel that I want to be picked up by you. So this kind of a behavior is an instrumental conditioning or operant conditioning, where you have conditioned your behavior such that you know what will be the consequence and you want that consequence to happen. So here if you see that rewards were introduced to increase a behavior and punishment were introduced to decrease a behavior. So now the rat knows that whenever I do this kind of behavior, I get a punishment. Whenever I do this kind of behavior, I get a reward. So it will voluntarily try to behave according to this kind of behavior and get rewards and not punishment. So this kind of conditioned learning is known as instrumental or operant learning or conditioning. Next we have is the latent learning. So latent learning is basically when so latent learning means that something you have learned but you do not show it until it is required. So this kind of learning is latent because it is hidden inside your understanding, but you do not exactly demonstrate it because there is no such direct requirement. So rats wandered in this maze for 10 days. They did not receive any rewards nor any punishment. But on the 11th day, a food was placed at the end of the maze. So rats were quickly able to find the fastest path to the food, which means that they already know their way out from the maze because they have spent 10 days over there. But they did not just go out because they did not understand if there is any reward at the end of it. But whenever a food was given, they quickly just came out of the maze because showing that they already know the path. So that means that they have already acquired the information how to get out of the maze, but they were not showing it until there is any reward associated with it. This kind of learning is known as latent learning. It refers to learning that is only exhibited at a later date. So when you get something later, then you will use it. So a child might learn a new words. We all have seen that whenever we speak something, a child catches those words and they just keep those words, and sometime later they will just say that word. So we will all get shocked that how did you learn this and all that, but they have picked up that word sometime when you were talking about it. But you don't know because immediately they do not say that word, but after some time they might say that word, and then you know that okay, he or she has learned this particular word. So this is an example of latent learning. And also, like the teenager observes that his mother is instructing to clean his room, but a few decades later, but it is not cleaning. So a few decades later, he is actually applying the same thing to his own child, and he is instructing his child to clean your room. So this is learning. Whatever we have learned from our parents, we are applying that same thing to our children. So this is latent learning, but since the children were not at that time, so it did not apply that learning over there, but it was demonstrated at a much later time point. So this is called latent learning. It is a type of observational learning where learner does not have to actively participate in an something, but it will show this learned behavior at some time later. Next, we have the complex learning things in which the insight learning. So what is exactly insight learning? Insight meaning that there is a mental process which is marked by a sudden and expected solution to a problem. The aha experience, often we have seen that we know the answer to something, but it does not come to our mind just like that. We have to think about it, and sometimes when we are doing something totally different, like when we are eating, and sometimes we remember, oh, that is the answer to that question. So this is the aha moment, and it also is called the aha experience. So this is known as insight learning, that we suddenly realize a solution to a problem. So it is a result of seeing the connection between variables in a situation that were not recognized previously. So sometimes we are not able to think outside of the box, and we think in the same way, and their solution does not come. But if we start analyzing it in a different way, and if we think about it in a different way, then suddenly the answer comes to our mind. So this happens usually, and it is known as insight learning. So the solution emerges after a lot of failed attempts, and the solution involves novel structuring of like you have to look at the problem in a different way. Then the solution appears suddenly. So examples is not being able to generate a design for several days and then realizing the solution while we are walking through the woods. So like we have gone for a walk and then suddenly you get the answer to it. Or being stuck in the composition of a musical score and hearing the missing notes while in the bus, when you're traveling in the bus. So these kinds of things keep happening, and this is known as insight learning. You already know the answer, but you have to think it in a different way in order to get it to your mind instantly. The last thing is the imprinting. So imprinting behavior. So let us just, yes, so we have done latent, insight, and imprinting. Okay, so imprinting behavior is the behavior where the animals learn to behave according to its parent, like they acquire a specific behavior. So animal returns to the place of its birth to lay its eggs. Animal imprints on its mother. So we have seen this scene very often, that when a mother duck goes and there are few ducklings just following it around. So this behavior involves both innate and learned behaviors. Like in the first few days of its life, it will recognize its mother and it will act according to whatever the mother is doing, it will do the same thing. So this is known as imprinting behavior. So it has it is also innate and it is as well as learned. It will learn that from its mother. So this requires an appropriate stimulus during the critical period, and once it acquires, this behavior is irreversible. So you cannot change that. Once it starts following its mother, it will follow its mother throughout its infant period. So this innate thing is for acquiring a specific behavior. So example is in the first 2 days of life, the grey-lag goslings, they will accept any moving object as their mother for their life. Even a real mother, if it comes after the critical period, then they will reject the real mother also. But they will consider any living or moving object for their mother in the first 2 days of the life. So this is the critical period for grey-lag goslings, and therefore they are very once it recognizes its mother, they will also start following the mother. Like the salmon fish, they hatch in freshwater streams and they migrate to the ocean to eat. So when they are ready to mate, they return to the freshwater, they return to their birthplace to breed, identifying the exact location of the stream. So during their early life, they imprint the odors of their birthplace. So when they were really young, they have imprinted in their mind that what is their birthplace like. And they try to return to the birthplace at the same location when they are also breeding, when it's breeding season. So when they are breeding, they come back to the same position and they hatch their eggs in the same way, just how they were born themselves. So this is imprinting behavior because just from birth they know where they have born. So this is something very interesting also. So this is known as imprinting. So this concludes the animal behavior, the learning as well as the innate behavior both. And in the next, the animal behavior part is not yet done. So in the next video I will move on with mimicry and coloration. Thank you.